So, welcome to Relative Vision TV. I'm your host, Marcus Hood. I have a very special guest here today. His name is Brenden. He's the founder of Master Talk, which you can find on YouTube, and he also has an Instagram you can follow, and that's Master Talk as well. He wants to open up the art of speaking and public communication, and we're here today to find out how we can learn from him, and he can teach us something today special about learning how to communicate with one another in public speaking. So, Brendan, if you don't mind, introduce yourself to the people. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, for sure, Marcus. Thanks so much for having me on, man. So my name is Brenden Kumarasamy. I'm the founder of Master Talk. Master Talk is a YouTube channel I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. And how I got started was when I was in university. In college, Marcus, I went to business school and I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports,
Yeah.
but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing, yeah, but playing like basketball or rugby or some other sport, you probably wouldn't see me playing. I did presentations competitively.
Okay.
That's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching a lot of the students on how to communicate ideas. And that's why I got the idea for Master Talk because I felt that everything that I was sharing with them wasn't available for free on the internet. So that's what happened.
Yeah, you fulfilled that service. Definitely. Yeah, man. You do speak very well, man. You must work on that. Where's that come from? One of the first questions I usually ask people is how you were brought up, how were you raised, and did you have both parents in the household? Can you kind of break that down, your upbringing?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. So my parents immigrated from Sri Lanka, which is a small country south of India, in
Yeah.
the early 90s to Canada. So, my mom was 30 years old. First time she ever took a flight in her life. She came into the country without a winter jacket while it was snowing outside. She never saw snow
Mhm.
in her life either. And I was born a few years after that. So I got lucky that I was born in a first world country like Canada. So I had both parents, and we didn't grow up with a lot of money, but they were both factory workers.
Mhm.
And the focus for my life, because I was the first guy to come to this country, was to be successful. So I would say most of my childhood was good, obviously a bit stressful because my dad was an alcoholic and it was dysfunctional in some ways, but it was really filled with love as well.
Okay. Are those some of the adversities that you went through? Like, I know it's kind of it was your dad's alcoholism, but how did that kind of affect your life? Growing up.
Yeah, for sure, man. I would say for the first, 7 to 10 years, it wasn't so bad. Where I
Yeah.
was really just focused on, getting an education and not really trying to art because I'm like 8 or 10 years
Mhm.
old. I think the challenges really started when I was probably 12 or 13 when he lost his job. That's when it got really tough, where we didn't really have a lot of money and, he was drinking a lot and we didn't have money to pay for the alcohol. So it was really, really tough. So I was really motivated
Mhm.
to be successful in life. That's why I went to business school. I made all the right moves and got that six-figure corporate job that I wanted, or else I thought I wanted
Right.
to be successful.
Okay. So along with that, so you had a formal education, and most people learn from from their formal education. But what about that informal education? What did you learn outside of school that helped you develop the skills that you have today?
Yeah, for sure, Marcus. I would say school played a big role in my public speaking education. But when I mean school, I don't mean classes. I don't mean courses. I mean extracurricular activities. So
Okay.
that case competition thing that I was talking about where you're giving these business presentations, that wasn't a school assignment. That's literally instead of playing football, you're like doing case comp, kind of like a debate team.
Right.
And it was the people in that group that really made me into who I am today, where they would constantly push me. It's kind of like you're like I always like to call myself the Michael Jordan that nobody gives a shit about.
Yeah.
Where you have like Michael Jordan is really focused on basketball, and people care about basketball. I was the same way in university, but in a sport that nobody pays attention to, which was case competitions. So that's how I learned. I would say informally though, most of my informal education was listening to podcasts like this. So I
Mhm.
started listening to Lewis Howes's show, The School of Greatness, when I was probably like 20 years old. This is back when there wasn't a lot of podcasts.
Right.
And I ate that show up. I probably listened to hundreds of episodes from like the ages of 20 to today. And that's where most of my informal ed came from.
Okay. So what are some of the shows that you're listening to now to pick up tidbits on how to refine your game?
Yeah, for sure, man. I would say that's a big one that I'm still listening to today. The other shows that I'm paying attention to is like Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman. He interviews a lot of billionaire tech CEOs, just thinking through their process. And that's one. Another one is the All In podcast with Shamat, Jason, David, and David Sachs, which is basically a tech podcast talking about current events, which I love. And then another one is Tom Billy's Impact Theory. I like Tom's interview style a lot.
Okay. Have you had a chance to touch bases with any of these people in person or anything like that?
Yeah, a few of them, mostly Lewis. So I go to his live event every year in the middle of nowhere. It's in like Columbus, Ohio. So I make the trip just to go see the community. Everyone's pretty great there. That's where I met my business partner. That's where my life changed.
Okay. So what other type of events are there out there to listening to speakers like yourself?
There's so many, Marcus, a ton of them. I would say it's more about listen to the people in general, like watch a lot of people, and then the people you gravitate towards, you want to lean in on that energy. So in
Yeah.
the same way I resonate more with Lewis's work, somebody else might say, "Well, I like Thomas better." Somebody else might say, "Well, I like Les Brown better." So they might gravitate towards those
Uh-huh.
people. So I would say follow that intuition and then do research on where their events are being held, what programs they have, so that you're following the right ecosystem. And that's what I did with Lewis, and I would encourage people to go deep on those the people as well.
Yeah, I actually woke up this morning listening to Eric Thomas. I love hearing Eric speak. Have you heard him in person?
Not in person, but
No.
I've watched a lot of his keynotes for sure.
Okay. So what do you think your your way of speaking and your content, who does that speak to? Like, and what does that do for the average person, do you believe? What difference are you making?
Yeah, for sure, Marcus. I would say that for me, the lining thread is simplicity and injecting belief. So, what does that mean? The first piece that I feel a lot of communication content out there is really boring, first of all. It's like, you can't relate to the person talking. It's usually old white men who have PhDs in communication. That's what's usually available
Yeah.
on YouTube. And it's not super exciting. It's very theoretical and it's also complicated. They go into theory and ideas that, like, okay, well, communication is not that difficult. So it's not something that people are motivated to practice, which brings me to the last point, is a lot of that content isn't really exciting. You know what I like about a lot of the business personalities today, like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Patrick Bet-David, whether we like them or not is beside the point. At least there's some energy, there's some passion there,
Yeah.
so we can follow them and listen to them. I
Mhm.
don't think somebody exists right now in the communication space besides me who's mixing excitement and enthusiasm with communication. So I would say that's my biggest unique selling point.
Okay. So is there anybody out there that you're looking to work with or create content with? Do you have any ideas or events that you're going to create with somebody that is unique in the space?
Yeah, for sure, man. I would say for me, the collabs that I'm looking forward to in the future is really guesting on a lot of the top shows in the world, which is, like Lewis Howes's show, being a guest there, being a guest on Joe Rogan's podcast someday. That's really the collaborations I'm looking at right now, besides the ones that I have with my business partner. I would say the focus for me, which is a bit different because everyone's got their own content strategy.
Hmm.
I'd say for me, it's to be number one in the communication space, which means that's why all of my episodes on YouTube are solo episode where I
Right.
just dump all of my brain onto the channel and I'm still learning as I go. And so that becomes kind of like the number one hub for people who want to listen and consume content on communication. I'm still getting better. I'm still young. So
Right.
so I got a lot more decades to go for sure.
So how did you make this skill into a business? You know what I mean? How do you make it something that's bringing you revenue? Because it's something so simple. You know what I mean? We all talk and it's something that creates our social lives, but you're making this into a business. How do you do that?
For sure, man. So let me start with the principle. I think most people listening to this podcast shouldn't be entrepreneurs. And I'll tell you why. The reason is because entrepreneurship forces you to do something that I believe most human beings aren't capable of, which is constantly and frequently changing at lightning speed. You need to be willing to challenge your beliefs constantly, whereas a lot of people can't even agree on which political party they want to be a part of.
Mhm.
So this is the problem with entrepreneurship is the market doesn't care. Right? The market is just an objective. This is the value. What are you giving me? And if you have too much emotion in it, you
Yeah.
actually won't be successful in business. So
Yeah.
for me, the advice always starts with get a high paying job. I don't care if it's a job on Wall Street or if it's a job being a plumber, because a lot of plumbing jobs pay really well. So I think the key is to start by finding our zone of excellence, which is putting passion to the side a little bit, because a lot of us don't even know what our passion is,
Mhm.
right? If you know what it is, go for it. If you know what it is. But if you don't know what it is, I would encourage you to find your zone of excellence first, which is what are you good at that people are willing to pay money for? So for me, when I started my career, it wasn't start a YouTube channel on communication. I didn't even know you can get paid to be a coach, Marcus.
Right.
It was be an accountant.
Uh-huh.
That's what I did. My bachelor's degree is in accounting. I worked for one of the big accounting firms. That's how I made my money initially. And then after I became a consultant at IBM. But when I started making money, that's when I had time to think about my passions, right? So I would start there. In terms of how I monetize the business, the short answer is I never thought it was going to be a business. I started making videos for fun to help people because it's just
Uh-huh.
something I was passionate about, and it was a side project. And I didn't have to worry about the money because I was making money from IBM. But then as the months went by, I met my business partner, and he's the one who said, you can monetize this by coaching people. So I started developing a niche with technology executives, primarily in my community, like the Indian community and immigrants. And that's how I built my book.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Um, so with building this business, how how would you say somebody gets to the point to where they get over the fear of stepping outside of the comfort zone? Because a lot of people, it's easy to have this 9 to 5 job. You know what I mean? It's security in that. You know what I mean? How do you transition into being that confident entrepreneur?
Yeah, man. I would say, Marcus, it's one step at a time. Mark Cuban says it best, and I love repurposing his advice, which is if you can't do the business part time, there's no way in the world you're going to be able to do this full time.
Mhm.
So my advice is always like for me, I'm always say this on the record. I don't actually think I'm an entrepreneur, even if I've had some success as one.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that specifically? If I was doing anything than building a coaching business or a workshop business or a speaking business, I probably wouldn't be in business. I
Mhm.
would just go back to my 9 to 5. I loved my 9 to 5. I would just work there. It's
Yes.
just in
Listen.
coach exactly. It's just the coaching business is really exciting for me because
Mhm.
it's a very high energy intensive business. And what I love about it, it's high margin. You don't need to work with a lot of people to make a full time living because my packages are thousands of dollars, right? So if I have 30 clients, like I'm done. Like that's my
Yeah.
book. So I don't need a lot of clients, but there's cons to that business too, which is you got to really be your client's therapist. You got to really pour into them so they talk about you with other people. So why do I say all of this? I say all of this to say that's why I love jobs. I don't know why people don't like jobs. I love jobs because it's a guaranteed income for guaranteed output. If you work in this factory, you do this thing, you drive an Uber, you work at an accounting firm, to get results, they'll pay you a specific amount of money, which I think is great because that check is always guaranteed.
Right.
But then when it comes to entrepreneurship, what I'll say is once you have that job, then start to experiment with 5, 7 different business ideas to in a small way, in a very tiny way, so that it gives you energy to see what actually gets you excited. Like I would do coaching even if nobody paid me for it because I did it for 3 years in
I think
university.
that's the key
Yeah,
part of it, though. You know what I mean? The fact that you'll do something without getting paid for it, it'll make you that much more money. You know what I mean? It's that much more pleasurable. And transitioning, it's like you take your emotion out of business. So how does all this stuff make you feel personally? Like the successes you have, the effect that you have on people's lives. How does that make you feel? And is there any type of spiritual part of what you do? Like how do you tap into that spirituality in what you do and the effect of that? Like yeah. Do you understand the question? Yeah.
100% Marcus. And I love it. How does it make me feel? I would say for me, there's a lot of joy in the business that I'm in because I can really create impact. And that's what I love about this business is if you don't get people results, you don't get more business.
Mm,
Whereas if you really get people results and you help them and you guide them, you help them see what's possible for their life that they don't yet see for themselves.
mhm.
So I'd say that's the biggest thing. But I'll say the other piece, and then we can jump into spirituality, is I got lucky in life, Marcus, where I found my calling really young, right? Where I asked myself all the hard questions. I did all the hard work to find out that, hey, I get to create a platform where even if somebody can't afford a coach, they can at least code the videos and learn exactly what I teach people,
Yeah,
anyways, and get better at it. I would say spirituality, though, how that plays into my life. I'm not super religious, but I do believe that all of us have a unique essence. We have a unique gift. And the reason I believe that really strongly is because there's only going to be one version of us,
yeah.
whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else. And I think the meaning of life is to try and find that gift. But the most important decision we need to make as human beings is to make a conscious effort towards finding the gift or thinking there is one to begin with. Because if
Mhm.
we don't think that, we'll never find it.
Okay. So, do you think in the specifically in the Indian community, are you different than anyone else that you're around? How much different are you from everyone else that you're around?
Right, right, right. Interesting question. I would say very different. Very different.
Mhm.
In the sense that most people in my community, they just follow the rules.
Right.
Get a great job, get promoted, follow what everyone else tells you to, get married,
Yeah.
have kids. But I think most human beings are like that too. I would say what's made me successful is I broke all the rules. I'm 26 years old. I still live with my mother. I probably won't leave my house till I'm 30. I don't think I'll get into a relationship until I'm in my late 20s because all my focus is on the business.
Yeah.
And I don't go to any traditional gatherings. The only 8 cousins I spend time with are like the 8 or 9 people I can count on my fingers that I meet twice a year. So I've broken every rule to maximize my happiness for me and for the people that I want to serve in my lifetime. And I definitely think most people don't do that, especially not in the Indian community.
Does it affect your social life?
It actually doesn't, and I'll tell you why. The reason it doesn't, it used to potentially. I think the reason that I say that is because you don't need a lot of people
Mhm.
in your life. And I think that's what a lot of people get wrong with the follower count, the social media. I told my cousin once, I said, "How many real friends do you think I have?" And they said like, "Oh, maybe like 50, because you have like all these followers and stuff."
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I said, "Nah, man, I got like 8,
Yeah.
like 7. It's 8." So I think the point I want to drive, Marcus, is there's a lot of great people in the world. You don't need to feel tied down to just your city. You just need to be willing to go out there. I mean, look at all the people you've met on this podcast. I'm sure you met some super cool people.
Yeah.
And then there's like 7 of them. Some of them you're like, geez, okay, why am I on an episode with them? And then other times you're like, yeah, this person just vibes with me. And those are the people we should focus on. And
Yeah.
I think most of us focus too much on the quantity of people versus the quality, which in my opinion is what are they willing to do for you? And it's not about business. It's
Right.
just like if your mother is sick, are they willing to fly out and take an airplane to come see you? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, people or some people are just more valuable. They bring more value to your life. You know what I mean? I always put that in perspective, and that's what I want to bring to the table. I want to bring when I come to anyone's table, I want to bring value. Whether it's friends, family, whatever. Just forget the chips. Just bring value when you come. You know what I mean? Be willing to help the situation move forward in some type of way. Bring a good conversation, a good game, something we can all build off of. You know what I mean? And essentially, and I appreciate you taking your time today and sitting down with me. And I'm learning a lot just from what you're doing and your perspective in life. Is take emotion out of business and don't be afraid to break the rules. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people, especially in the Indian community. I have a lot of Indian friends that are very structured. You know what I mean? Which isn't a bad. It's not a bad thing at all. Though all those people are successful, and it's kind of honing your own craft and finding your own way in life that makes it that much more enjoyable. You know what I mean? Us being that unique individual helps us stand out. You know what I mean? To bring it back to what you said earlier, it's a special thing, and I love connecting with people like yourself that are successful, doing well. You know what I mean? That have brown skin. You know what I mean? We don't necessarily look like those old white guys that are usually speaking to us. That that you brought up earlier. And I like to see what you're doing in the space that you have because I don't see a lot of young Indian men that are in the communication space that you are, and on YouTube especially. I don't see that, and I see that your videos are doing very well. You know what I mean? So congratulations to all the success you have. And I got a few more questions. I really want to know what the people that are closest to you, what role do they play in your life? Like the people that in your business life and socially, how does that affect you? How do those two groups of people that are close to you, how do they affect your lifestyle?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the kind and generous words. That was awfully, awfully kind, and I really, really appreciate it, man. Because that's something that I've thought about too. Is I didn't really think about when I started the channel, but
Yeah,
a few years after, I was like, huh, you're right. Like, I don't think there's a lot of Indian men who are actually trying to challenge the status quo. So I really appreciate you recognizing that. So
yeah,
thank you, man.
definitely.
So I would say two parts to your question. The first one is the business relationships and the family. A lot of this is intertwined at this point, but
Yeah,
because my business partners are family, but I'm happy to jump in. So I would say the first piece, my mom and my sister. Let's start there. I live with both of them. My life would be impossible to manage without them. You
yeah,
know, they cook for me, they clean everything, they do all the laundry. And now I'm struggling this month because they're visiting my home country. So I
yeah.
have to do all that now with all of the meetings I have. So it's brought I mean, I was already empathetic, but it's brought me a lot more
You're
empathy to
spoiled.
say,
You're
like,
spoiled a little
I'm super spoiled. I mean, let's also understand the balance so people don't judge me. I also pay all the bills. So it's a fair trade. It's a fair trade.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Right. It's I mean, maybe it might be fair, but there's some equity there. So I'll take that.
yeah,
But the other piece though is my life would not be possible to run without them. My
yeah,
goodness. Like I don't have to think about food. I just have to do like the calls and just focus. And that's really been a big part of why Master grew so quickly. It's
yeah,
because of the incredible women in my life. And that's also true with my cousins. You know what I love about my family? Because that's the difference between family and, you know, business professional relationship is family might not push you to go after your dreams. And that's okay. Because I
mhm,
feel that's not an expectation we should have with our family. But you know what family will do? Family will always love you unconditionally, even if you go to zero. My mom wouldn't care if I became a $10 million business owner or if I just worked as a janitor somewhere. And there's nothing wrong with that. Is
yeah,
that she would love me either way, like the same amount.
yeah,
And I feel that's powerful and it's not as easy to get in your life with people you just meet. It's possible,
mhm,
but it's not easy. I think there's something about blood relationships that you just can't replace. So that's one. With my business partners, I would say there's a similar line of logic, but the way that they play a role in my life and my professional network, even if I don't even like the word professional, but you know what I mean, like
mhm,
people in my homies, let's call it my homies, my
yeah,
home slices, that they push me. You know, they're tough cookies. They
yeah.
don't help me settle for
That's
less than what.
unique. Yeah,
Yeah, and they're not nice, which is why I love them,
that's
right? Because
dope. That's a dope relationship to have. You know what I mean? Like me as an entrepreneur, I hope to find friends like that. You know what I mean? And I speak with my girlfriend about it all the time. It's like surround yourself with people that want to hold you accountable. You know what I mean? And that'll help you move forward in your life. You know what I mean? As fast as you possibly can. Because you look over your shoulder, you got somebody telling you, that doesn't help the brand. That doesn't help, you know what I mean, what you're looking to do. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool, man. It's good to hear that you have such a family dynamic in everything that you do because I find family to be important and your environment is crucial to being able to grow rows. You know what I mean? I look at it as, you know what I mean? When you grow any fruits or vegetables, anything that's alive, that's coming out of the ground, it has good soil. And that good soil is your environment that you live. You know what I mean? If you have bad soil, you won't be able to thrive in the way that you should be able to. And that's how I look at it. And the question that I'm going to end all this on is I want you to kind of picture your younger version of yourself or any younger man or woman out there that doesn't know who they are. If you were to give them a piece of advice to be successful and to break those boundaries and to find that good soil that you can place yourself in, and also the message that you want to leave with someone younger than yourself, what would that message be?
for sure, Marcus. So I'll say this, you know, Tony Robbins says the quality of your life is solely determined by the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. My version of Tony's quote is I dare you and everyone who's listening to this podcast to ask yourself one hard question about life every single day. And I promise you, if you did that for 30 days, you'll never be the same ever again. What does that look like? It means waking up tomorrow and asking yourself this question. If I gave you all the money in the world, what would you do with your time? Because a lot of us are trying to retire at 65, which is an arbitrary number that somebody else gave us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's the first question. I'll just give 3 to keep it simple for today. Then on day 2, ask yourself, now that you've figured out the answer to the first question, start to think about, okay, if you could only accomplish 3 things in your life, what would you want those 3 things to be and why? That's question 2.
Mhm.
Just think about it. Only 3 things, that keeps you focused. And then another question that I got recently is, what's one dream or goal that you've always wanted to achieve in your life that you secretly gave up on? That you secretly didn't tell anyone about, that you kind of threw to the wayside? What is that secret dream that you're hiding from everyone else? So bring it up. So once again, if you keep doing this every day, you'll never be the same. And I did this thousands of times, and that's why I have the clarity of someone who's already dead.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Tell the people where they can find all your content. Give them all your information so they can listen to your podcast, and I can share it with my community.
For sure, brother. Thanks for such a wholesome conversation. This is great, man. Really appreciate your intention and the way that you're leading with your movement and the conversations. So I really appreciate it, man.
All
So
right.
so Of course, man. So 2 ways to keep in touch. The first one is the YouTube channel. Just check out Master Talk in one word. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to speak. And the second one is I do a free workshop over Zoom on communication every 3 weeks. It's live, it's interactive, it's not boring, and I facilitate the call. So if you want to jump on it, just go to rockstarcommunicator.com.
Okay. And last thing, what is the next event you have going on that we can come out and see you in person or something like that? What is something that if you were doing something today, how could I show up with my film team, production team, and help get some more eyes on what you're doing?
I appreciate it, bro. I would say this year, most of my speaking engagements are like within corporations.
Yeah.
So it's not like an open ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I'm going to a lot of events that the people can meet me in person. I'm heading out to Columbus in 2 weeks for Summit of Greatness. I'm
Mm,
not sure when this is going to be released. I'm going to Funnel Hacking Live in Orlando, and I'm also going to Patrick Bet-David's event next week, Vault, and that I believe is in Miami. So going
okay.
to a couple, and then
Are you,
Tony Robbins in
are you
November.
keynotes in any of those or?
No, I'm coming as a participant. Most of my keynotes this year are like, because a lot of the speaking business, Marcus, it's actually not like those bigger stages.
Yeah.
There's maybe like a handful of speakers who get on them,
Yeah.
but most professional speakers, they usually speak to like corporations and stuff. So I have a lot of corporate clients, but
Right.
it's usually to their employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can connect and maybe try to get an event out here in California if you're willing to do something like that. I've been trying to put together a conference for entrepreneurs for a while, so maybe we can connect and do something like that on the business end. I own my own business, own building, so maybe we can connect and actually, you know what I mean, hook up and do something cool.
For sure, man. Always happy to talk, man. Always happy to chat.
Definitely. Thank you for coming on today, and we appreciate your time.
Hey, likewise, man. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. Have a blessed one.
You too, bro.
All right.